Good morning, everyone. Thank you one more time for joining us today. On behalf of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in the United Kingdom, I would like to extend a warm welcome to this webinar, where we will explore all aspects related to mental health at work. Before we get started, I would like to kindly remind you that this session is being recorded, so we can share it with you later. During the webinar, please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A function below, and of course, all your questions will be answered by our speaker following his presentation. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to start with a quick question. Have you ever experienced burnout at work? I'm sure all of us have experienced something similar, or maybe you know someone who has felt that way. And I think that's exactly the point. Mental health at work is truly universal, I guess. It cuts across all industries and affects businesses and employees alike. We will be exploring all of these topics during this webinar organized by the Spanish Chamber in collaboration with the online therapy clinic, a valued member of the Spanish Chamber that we are proud, very proud to have as part of our network. To provide some context, the online therapy clinic is led and owned by mental health experts. They bring years of clinical experience to provide solutions to build emotional resilience, compassionate workplaces, and psychological safety for organizations across the UK and the globe. Without further delay, I would hand over to Jaime G. Miralles, EMDR practitioner and CBT therapist. Jaime, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate it very much, and I'm really happy to be invited from be doing this webinar with the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. So let me share my slides. So, like Mark said, I'm an EMDR and CBT psychotherapist, and myself, like many people, have experienced burnout, and that's how I ended up opening or creating my own clinic. So I worked for a long time in the NHS, and there's been changes in the last 20 years, and that's been difficult throughout. So decided to open the clinic. And then you may notice there are two websites there. That's because we are moving to the actual name as theonlinetherapyclinic.com. The other one is the previous domain. So just to clarify that. So we will be talking today about sustaining well-being in the workplace, and we're thinking about creating sustainable workplaces, not just to protect, which is a really important matter, protect our teams, our people who work with us, but to protect the profit and protect the operational resilience. So why we're going to go through things like why this matter, the hidden business of it, the hidden cost for the business, some awareness. I just realized I've changed a few things, so the order doesn't match the agenda, so apologies about it. I haven't been very sure about what the structure is, so just bear with me. I'll be going through the subjects with detail, but in different order. We will look at some red flags, what we can look at. Then we will look at critical exposure. How does that look at work? We will look at psychological safety and why that's important, how we can support people at work, and things we can do. And then what's the benefit of all of this for the companies? And you're more than welcome to put any questions in the chat now or later. So let's name it. That image is AI created, and it doesn't give 100%. So either I gave the wrong commands to AI, or AI doesn't have common sense. I don't really know. But yeah, these are illustrative. They are not actual data. This is just a slide picture. So what happens in the day-to-day work is that there are high-pressure environments. There are tight deadlines, KPIs. There's a constant performance demand. This is businesses tend to reflect what society is to some extent, and what happens is that there is that demand of people for things that happen right now. Right? What is also is like deadlines, whether they're clients or individual customers, they will have an expectation of things to be done, and then businesses, owners, whoever runs, whether it's shareholders, you will have that wanting the income. So these things inherently are not harmful. So they are not designed to harm people. They are not designed to burn out people. They are not designed to stress people. It just happens that this is how work has changed and has moved in. And people who've been in any industry for the last 20 years would have seen that there's been a profession, there is a progression. Okay. So I am a really strong believer that humans are extremely resilient. We survived through centuries. We survived in different conditions, different migrations. So we are extremely capable of go through things. What happens is that is finite. There is a limit to all of us. The limit might be a month, the limit might be 10 years. And in our practice, in our day-to-day, we see people coming, very few people, and they are the good people that can identify this early, will come and say, oh, in the last month and a half, I've been very stressed. What you see is people coming for months and months and months and months of a lot of things building up and not being able to cope with them. And that's when you see coming up to our clinic, or we do work for the companies. So that's because people will be getting through things going forward. So why the sustainability matters is because this is very unlikely to be changing anytime soon, just because how businesses work. So it's also, there is that cultural element to it. So it's this these other elements of what companies sort of reflect in society brings. And one of the things that I learned when I came here and I started to work in a mental health hospital is the push through, the plowing through. Let's plow through things. Let's get through things, which is performance, meeting, getting through paperwork, getting through things. And what that does is that keeps our sense of threat, our nervous system gets activated, because you go from one challenge to another challenge to something else, and you carry on, and then it's performance at all costs, regardless of the emotional distress. So that is a big element on the long term, how the emotional sustainability and the well-being in the workplace is not going to happen. It's just going to end up in what is being shown, and we'll go through later on, high levels of stress and burnout, high levels of turnover and absence or presentism. And then there is this sense of don't bring emotions to work. Whether there are personal emotions, things that happen in your personal life that ultimately will impact your work, or whether there are things about work that impact your emotions, or things at work that you disagree with. So silence always feels safer than speaking. So it doesn't mean that it happens in every company. It's absolutely not. It doesn't happen in all company. Likewise, it doesn't happen that there is this push through. It does happen, right? So if any of you work in a company and this doesn't happen, that's great news. That is really great news. And then we see this firefighting leadership, which I always represent, and I don't know if someone ever has watched The Thick of It. It's a BBC TV series. I don't know how long ago they had even a film, and it's a character called Malcolm Tucker. So Malcolm Tucker is putting fires out. And this person is that's how I imagine, I don't know why now I imagine politics happens like that. It's just constantly putting a stress on people, constantly deadlines. It needs to be done now. What you can see this person is that it hasn't got time again to recover. It hasn't got time to take time from one event to leave your body process and your mind and your emotion process what has happened, so you can move to the next event. Sometimes it feels like that all the time. Sometimes what it also happens is that your sense of threat is so long activated that is used to it. So doesn't know how to relax, doesn't know how to breathe, doesn't know how to feel calm. And then things don't get processed. Your emotions, your physical sensations don't get processed. And I just realized I haven't got a clock. So let me see. I don't want to run over. So there is that also sense of no time culture. So there is no space to talk about things. There is no space about discussing how things have happened. And there is no time to even send emails, answer to emails, right? Companies are trying to do this, and what it like the approach to emotional load sometimes is a one fits all, meaning all the companies needs the same, or all the employees needs the same. And now we know that that's not the case because depend on the industry, there'll be peaks and drops, there'll be a constant stress, there'll be events that happens more often, and that's going to be worse. I don't know, end of year or quarters and so on and so forth. So it's understanding how for your business to be sustainable, what you need to provide to people and how people need to manage things. So this is where it's been well researched, has been shown. So the hidden cost of the business is actually this an inconsistent performance and efficiency. So people, even sometimes people start to recognize within themselves they are not as efficient or as performing as high as they would like to be. And they continue plowing through. They overcompensate. They do more. They read more. They do things more. They overcompensate. And also, it could be that they avoid. So it's an undercompensation. So they are sluggish. They do things as much. However, either or, there'll be an impact on the performance and the efficiency of people and therefore the business. Because of your sense of threat and your nervous system is activated, there is that sense of focus. So what we know is that we will focus on the danger in front of us. And now what it's doing is that it's declining your creativity, and it's likely to increase mistakes or doing rework because there is no bigger picture which comes to that strategic thinking. So doing rework, or even you haven't done mistakes, but you have the felt sense that you haven't done mistakes, you are not doing enough. So I, for example, look at this presentation 5 times. I'm just noticing that I'm somehow building up to this webinar more than any other webinars. I don't know why, but it does happen. So I'm reworking, so I'm not as efficient, yet it was okay the first time I saw it, right? When you think about me, my clinic, the work people we do, the impact is less because just the size of what we do and the cost that we have. When you think about business, this is going to have a lot longer impact in the longer term. Likewise, loss of strategic thinking and risk assessing. So roles that they might be needing more of a long-term view of things, or they need to be assessing what is the impact of the decisions may have because of the sense of activation of the hypervigilance of what it may be coming next. You don't see further down the line. And then you have like the absence, turnover, presentism, and so on. How I see it, and I read this a while back, is the borrowing of the performance, right? And it happens also if you are a self-employed. You are getting these short-term wins, yet in the long term, you're losing. It's not sustainable. You can't carry on doing it, right? And one of the things I sometimes ask people when they come through the door, this is in one-to-one sessions, when I ask them, if you had 76 hours constant work, would you get through the next 2 weeks worth of work? And they would say, no, I wouldn't. Yet 76 hours of work is 2 weeks worth of work. So realistically, you cannot get through. So even if you do overtime, you're still not getting through things just because the long term is unsustainable. So thinking about awareness of what we miss. So we hear a lot about the stress. Stress is temporal, and temporal is a nuance to temporal. And I always find it very interesting, this nuance, because it could be a day, it could be a month, or it could be 5 years, right? So stress could be also sporadic, or it could be micro stress. So a lot of small things that they are not related to each other, that they are creating your stress. With the stress, you have sleep problems, you have anxiety increase, you have stomach problems. There's a lot of set of things that come with the stress. And then if it's about work and the demands of work, it could lead to burnout. And then once burnout, you start thinking of talking about negatively about work, you start to be less engaged. A colleague of mine said, "Oh, I disconnected. I disconnected. No, I checked out. That's the word. I checked out." And then they found another job. So yeah. So these two things are things that we see, and we hopefully people are understanding more, and the businesses are understanding what they look like and what they can put in place. And it's a lot of about the well-being in the workplace, which is very positive. And once again, talking to one of my colleagues, we were talking about mental health, and they were talking about how the 10, 15 years we've seen a much, much positive approach and much stigma reduced of mental health within the workplace and society, which is good. Still things to come or things to grow in Spain. It's a lot of more spoken about it. In Britain, it's a bit more open and more accepted, which is really good. There are other things, and this is where I sometimes come myself thinking burnout as a symptom rather than a core, a reason, or of the main issue. So things like compassion fatigue, which is very common with people that work in the healthcare, people who work in HR, social care, people who work customer facing, people who are in the helping profession, in the caring profession. What it happens is that it's a point where you start not caring. And that goes against your values. So then you start feeling very demotivated going to work. You start thinking that it's not worth going to work. And it's because you are tired of giving so much to others, and the demand of other people is increasing. And the sheer amount of people, the sheer amount of clients that you have is too big. And that's where you start to feeling that compassion fatigue, which could be linked again to burnout. It will create stress anyway. So you may be experiencing compassion fatigue because of the stress of your job. Then you have other things like moral injury and moral distress, which is more about when you do things that they are against your values. So you can see this in professions again, healthcare, social care. You can see this in law, in certain aspects of law. Is when you're doing things that don't go about what you believe. They go about your values. The difference is that this brings with it a link of shame or a link of psychological distress, because you feel that you're not doing things that they are who you are truly, right? And then we're thinking about organizational trauma, which is a bit more broad, and I'm not going to go into detail on it, just because there are things like discrimination, xenophobia, bullying, and so on. So all of that will create a lot of trauma. What it could be, if you think about it, and I'm going to link back to Malcolm Tucker, if you think, and that's what I'm going to be touching rather than the bullying or the dynamics, the toxic dynamics of the work environment. If you think of an organization that doesn't feel safe, an organization that doesn't feel supportive, an organization that you're constantly monitored or judged, that will create a lot of trauma from working in organizations. What we see is an increase of people coming and either searching or looking for help because the previous employment is impacting the current employment, because they think, well, I know nothing, they are lovely, I just can't stand them, but I don't know why, they can't understand. And what you do is a trauma work on the previous employment, what it happened. Or employers come in and say, actually, we have all of this in place, these other people is working, for them it's not working. And that's what the organizational trauma comes to, because the actual organization has been very negative for someone. So I think if I would be an interim and I had a lovely experience in this lovely place, I'm more likely to be a positive view when I go to work into another place. And that can change because some people say, actually, I had really too bad employment, and then I start overthinking. I start doubting myself. My self-esteem has gone down. So they may or may not have had self-esteem problems, yet the work, the dynamics in this organization has created that problem. And also employers bringing and saying, actually, yeah, we don't know what's happening. So so that's where the organization trauma. However, this is a much bigger picture because there is a lot of things like ethnicity, sexuality, and so on. There's a lot of things that could lead to organizational trauma. And then we are thinking about traumatic critical events, which is things that people witness or hear or are involved in. So let me see if the actual slide is what it's meant to be. So it is. So what happens is that there has been so it seems that I'm always referring to the last 10, 15 years as if nothing has been before 10, 15 years. So what happens is that there's been an increase on public-facing staff, whether this is front of the house, phone answering, teaching, customer services, entertainment, hospitality, retail, care. There's been an increase on verbal and physical abuse. And you can see it. It's on the papers. You go to any place and we don't tolerate. You can see it in all the hospitals. We don't tolerate. And there is an increase of security people facing all this abuse, all these people that they've been contracted to deal with customers and so on, that they are being verbally or physically aggressive. And I had a conversation earlier on before we started about haters. So it's the same. People are facing that in a day-to-day. You are being exposed to a lot of challenges and difficulties. And this might be only you could be experiencing, or you can be hearing from a colleague of yours. Then there is other high exposure roles to critical exposure and the more realities of things, that the vicarious trauma. So things, people in legal cases, work accidents, threats or assaults, right? So you can be hearing or seeing this as a bystander or as someone who is reading a case or someone who is hearing about, I don't know, HR staff, hearing about employment tribunals and so on and so forth. That this is very common in people who's gone through trial, not as trialees, more of a witnesses or as a juries. So you will hear things and you will start thinking about it more. What happens is that people start thinking about it more, their self-sense is increased, they start thinking it's going to happen again, why me? I must have done something wrong. They start having dreams, nightmares, and that then is taken into work. And the work continues, and there is no time because of the demand of the work. There is no time for the nervous system and your emotions and physical sensations, so the somatic event, to be able to process it and come to terms with it. So they continue re-experiencing, or they have what we call confirmation events. So we carry some, it confirms I'm in danger and confirms I'm not good enough. And one of the things is sometimes when we talk about who will look after this staff, is knowing where your organization and management ends and where you need that clinical expertise. I don't think there is an expectation of anyone in a company, sometimes you wouldn't have a trauma manager expert that you would do trauma work for people. You would need a clinical expertise for this. And you would know who you are referring or who you are sending posting to. Please, any questions, put them in the chat. When we think about those mental health, so we can start thinking about what are the behavioral red flags. Behavioral because we can see them, right? Rather than what is happening inside people, because All of this is happening more inside people than outwards. And when we see it outwards is when it's built up to the point that people start to be talking negatively about work, they start to not turning up. So that's the outwards behavior. In the years that I work in mental health, there is one thing that we ask always about loved ones, and we ask about colleagues and people who carers and so on, is the out of character. When someone is out of character, some people is, so how do you recognize anxiety? How do you recognize depression? How do you recognize? That's not your job as a work colleague, as a mental health first aider. Is to some extent having the knowledge of it is helpful. You don't need to be thinking what is the problem they have. What you need to be understanding is what's the out of character. You can ask yourself also this question. Whenever it's harder to be, we are more biased towards ourselves. So we get through things, we plow through, we don't talk about emotions. It's just sort of brought into us. Not hopefully generations should come change. But what happens is that we can ask ourselves, am I out of character? Am I more withdrawn? Am I getting short-tempered? Even if I'm not verbalizing it, am I getting more angry with other people? Am I overworking, underworking? Do I go to the office earlier, later? For me, this is very biased to me. And because when I see someone who goes to work earlier and leaves later, my automatic thought is, why they don't want to be in the house? Why they don't want time off? Something must be happening at home. Yet you could formulate this or conceptualize, they need to be catching up because there's a lot of people who catch up in the mornings and so on. So if you're doing it and you weren't doing it before, then why am I doing it, right? Rather than what is happening within me that I'm doing these out of character things. Now, from a point of view of management, team support, and so on, when you see people that they're having more negative talk, they are overworking, short-tempered, or more withdrawal, they feel like they are more perfectionistic or more apathetic, so they might be asking you for more reassurance, or they may checking more AI for things that they didn't check before, or they may be asking, oh, can you check this email, can you do that, do you know if this is going to happen? So those are signs that that person is not themselves, right? What happens is that you also can see it in change in emails and text tone. I personally hear the voice of people when I'm reading the images, the emails. I can hear the voice of people or how I perceive people. I read it. So if I read it differently, I think, this person has changed the way they write. Yeah, but I'm not going to go into that because that also would make my emotions at the time would change it. But so it's about spotting when people are changing. To do this, you need to know the people. So if you're a manager or you're a work colleague, and it's not the same a work colleague that a friend, you don't know them the same, the relationship is different. If you're a manager and you take time to understand people's pressure points, you take the time to understand people likes, dislikes, patterns, and so on, then you'll be more likely to spot this trait. And then once you spot this strain, it's always this, how do I bring it up? What do I say? How I say it? So before we move into that, we need to be thinking about psychological safety, which is very spoken now more than before. So it does a lot of things, why that works in businesses and so on. We'll focus on the emotions and the well-being. So if you think about the work about psychological safety, for me, in a short term, as I understand it, is that I can be myself and I'm still safe. I can go to work, I can talk to people, and I feel safe. I don't feel threatened. I live without fear of being judged, or being shouted, or being mistreated. So when you think about workplaces, you can speak up, you can ask for help, you can raise risk of mistakes, whoever is the person you're reporting to, or whether, and there is not going to be consequence. There is no fear of being told off, right? So when you think about emotions and well-being, is that you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be shamed. You're not going to be, there's not going to be a negative attitude towards who you are and the difficulties you're experiencing. So if you think actually this project is being very stressful and I'm not performing as I'd like, if you feel safe to say that, people might say, oh, let's get you some support, let's reduce your caseload, let's see if we can refer you to someone, let's do something so you can feel competent and you can fulfill what you want to do as an employee and as a person and get you better. Or if someone has been in an event, so someone, I don't want to detail because I don't share, but anyway, so let's say someone was to witness in a workplace an event, and since then they've been very distressed. If you're safe to say, oh, since last month I've been having dreams about it, since we witnessed that, it's affecting my relationships, I can't sleep, then they're going to be more able to approach you because they feel safe to do so. And that's the good thing of psychological safety within the mental health and the well-being. And it's not only that. So if you think about building a psychological safe workplace, is an indicator of high performance team. It's a retention and engagement. It creates a positive culture. There is a sense of belonging and being heard. So if you think we are social species, belonging to a group is really positive to us, is what we sort of wanted throughout and was kept that alive. It has a better leadership and decision making. It makes people more compassionate and more trauma informed. And from a mental health perspective, it does help you to have an early intervention and a proactive approach for people emotions. So what happens from a sustaining your business, sustaining the income, the profitability, sustaining the people, you are more likely to pick up on any mental health difficulties that impact your employers earlier. They're going to be less time off. People are going to feel better, not only time off. People are going to feel better within themselves. They're going to enjoy more their family or their friends or their relationships, and they're going to be happier to come to work, and they're going to be more productive. They're going to be more inventive. They're going to be more creative, right? So that is why it fits really positively with the sustainability of the business and the mental health. So how does supporting people at work look like? So you want to build that safety and you want to be normalizing mental health. So showing appreciation to people does help them to feel noticed, to feel heard. Showing your vulnerability. So a few times through the presentation, I mentioned about the watch, I mentioned about this, I mentioned about that. You want to know, as much as we know, as much as you might have worked somewhere for a long time, as much as culturally in the organization is that well, I have to be seen as untouchable or unvulnerable, no? Then people are going to be less likely to approach you. If someone is struggling and they think that you have no vulnerabilities, you're not human. Yeah, so people see us as a non-human, then they are not going to be approaching you to ask you, I have a human problem, right? So that would come along with the compassionate. So when you are a compassionate leadership, and then you start shifting from why are they doing this, or why is this not that, to what is happening in this person or to these people that is affecting the way they work. So that shift on the why, that it feels always more blaming to the what, then it can lead to how. So you can say how then, what is happening, and then how I'm solving it. The why always in that sense always feels, in a psychological terms or in mental health terms, the why is more blaming. The same as the buts. So the buts are also very invalidating to some extent. But yeah, we'll go. That's a different matter. That's a different matter. So you want to be explicit in naming operational pressures and the emotional impact. You want to say this project is impacting me, and I'm overworking, and this. The more you're naming it, the more people hear it, the more people are going to be able to say, I need some support here. And then it's using low-key, consistent daily check-ins, especially from team man, if there's some well-being lead team or a person, or there is a manager, is that consistent? Is you are there, you are approachable, you also need emotional and well-being support, and you are noticing people's shifts, and namely in a gentle, non-judgmental way. So being curious, I've noticed you coming earlier to work. Is everything okay at home? That's what I would say, because that's my buyer. But are things okay? How are you coping with a new project? Because they are in a new project, they're working too much, you're working more hours. Is like, is this a red flag? Has it been a change? Is this out of character? Do we need to put something in place for this person to be more creative, more inventive, to be feeling better, and for our business, our teams to be more performing better? And it's always that non-judgmental curiosity when we speak to people. So I'm going to ask you to put if any other things that come up to mind when you are thinking about supporting people at work. Very often people tell us, I think you're getting it wrong. I'll be honest with you. I've been working 20 years on this. Sometimes when I'm going to ask questions, I always think, sometimes, not always, I might be getting it wrong. Because we are all different, and you're going to assess the situation, you're going to conceptualize this person, and you're going to say, maybe this is the way of asking. And then you get it wrong. That's as long as you're genuine, you're not judgmental, and you are compassionate, then it's the way of doing it. You can't be saying, oh, could you smile a bit more? You have a long face. Well, likely you're getting it wrong. There's no compassion, there's judgment there, and there is no kindness. And these are difficult interactions, and sometimes people are not engaging in these interactions. And that is an opportunity to ask what is going on with them, that they are not engaging in what we provide at work, what we support them, especially companies at workplace that they are very supportive. So is it what is about it? What are we not doing, or what can we do? How can we adjust this? And sometimes adjustments are seen in some companies as a expense, and then they don't see the long term. And this particularly, any emotional sustainability, like any investment, it would take time. We're not going to be seeing any changes within 2 or 3 weeks. It will be years of you changing the way you operate to see a positive impact, or if it's a startup, started from the beginning. So 5 things that I recommend, or we recommend in the online therapy clinic, about helping people at work, right? I've been there. So it's out of character. Notice it and gently name it. In the appropriate timing, the proper place. It's about knowing that person, right? You're present and constant. You're not just when the problem comes or when something goes wrong. We want to be learning from where we are doing things right, and we want to be valuing when we're doing things right. So we are present when we're asking people, how are you feeling that things are going well? Good. We want to be then constant. How are you feeling that things are not going well? Right? We want to be cultivating leadership, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. And if you never have seen the thick of it, you can just put on any video providing Malcolm Tucker, I think it's with a U or a I can't remember. And you will see how emotionally dysregulated this person is. They've got no skills on emotions. So you want to be a bit more self-aware of how it's impacting, how your emotions are impacting your team. Then you want to be compassionate, and you want to be trauma-informed, and you want to be more understanding of personal pressures. So out of character, present and constant, self-awareness as a leader, and more of a compassion and understanding approach. So why does this benefit businesses? So there is a sustainable economical, environmental, and social. So it stabilizes the teams and protects your operation. It actually, mental health wins you tenders now. There is now with the MOD, I think it is, and then another public sector that actually providing mental health will give you points for the tenders. And there is clinical relevance. So if you are providing well-being strategies and mental health, that they are relevant, that supports the people of your people, the type or your employees or the kind of people and your company specifically, is more likely that your company is going to continue performing as it is today. Oh, lovely. And I finished. So I changed so much that I forgot that was the last one. So thank you very much. There are two things here. I don't know if you can see. You got a digital handout that you can keyword, and that's what the session covers and so on. And you got mostly free resources. Some of them NHS. So you got some apps. You got you can give to the staff. You can there is organization from gambling to addictions. There is quite it's a resource of 20 years worth of work collecting things to give to the people I work with. So yeah, that'd be that. So that's me done. Let me stop sharing. Lovely.
Thank you very much, Jaime, for sharing your knowledge with us. To be honest, I'm impressed, Jaime, because apart from your inspiring presentation, you also have excellent communication skills. So thank you so much for both things.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always mindful of my accent. I'm always mindful of my accent. It's one of those things that I was talking the other day with somewhere about accent bias. And I'm always aware that am I too strongly accented? But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jaime. We'll now open the floor to questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, turn on your camera and microphone, and ask them directly to Jaime. I think there's one from Maria. So Maria, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
I can't hear anything. Oh.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Maria. Hiya.
Okay, we have some technical problems. So Maria, please, could you write your question in the Q&A function? Jaime, you talk about red flags that we should be aware of. And also you said that workplace hasn't been designed for a good mental health environment at work. And related to all of that, here comes my question. Okay. How should I respond if a colleague shares a mental health issue with me?
Okay, well, thank you. So very common because we know what we know, right? So we have our experience, we have our knowledge and our skills in any work. So I always answer. So I think when you said it, I always thanks people. Oh, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. What you are encouraging is that people are going to be more able to speak. So thanking someone for going through the difficulty or the shame of the embarrassment of saying to someone, I'm not feeling well, or I'm having this difficulty is very, very important. So once you thank them, I would say that the best thing is, thank you, is there anything we could do? Or is there anything is there anything you think you want to empower them? You think it will help you with this? If they will say, yeah, no, then how how can we together help you with that. So it would be thanking, what did they need, what do they know what they want, and then so thanking what they know what to do and how we together can do it, right? How you can support them, how you empower them with your help rather than taking them away, rather than problem solving. If someone hasn't got the skills and said, I don't know, then you can say, well, let's have a search online. Let's ask the mental health lead. Let's see what the company provides, and then you can give the options. You can signpost. Yeah. So thanking, asking what they believe they helps them, and what you can do together, and then problem solving if they don't have the skills themselves. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Jaime. And I think a really important point is thanking that person, just to have like that kind of approach to tell a colleague that he has a mental health problem that is not easy sometimes in the workplace. So yeah. Thank you so much, Jaime. Maria sent us her question by Q&A function. So her question is, Jaime, well, he thanks you for your presentation, and he said, what's the difference between stress, burnout, and trauma?
So stress is something that is put to you by external factors, more likely things that they are happening around it, things like buying houses, selling houses, split ups, ill health. There are things that they are happening and they creating your stress. What is burnout is more of a constant, is more of a, when you are starting to be negative talk about work, negative talk about things, you feel that there is nothing positive about what you're doing. And then trauma itself is, so trauma, a traumatic event, okay, so trauma is anything that happens to you that changes something within you, and that's your traumatic response, right? So a critical event in two people in the same situation may not lead to a trauma response, right? Then we are not going to go into diagnosis of PTSD and so on, because that's a different matter. But what the trauma is, an event that has happened to you that is changed something within and is affecting your day to day. So it would be more of a specific event, or if you're thinking about long-term, is someone who's had a long-term traumatic experience called sometimes adverse childhood experience, or people who's been on negative relationships and so on. So that is the impact of that events or continuous events, right? So it's what it happens within you. It's the same. It's the difference is that it tends to be more, trauma tends to be the human or a natural event, meaning earthquakes or wars, as put it in an easy way, or assaults at work, or I don't know, building falling. Yeah, does that answer your question, Maria?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Thank you, Jaime. There's another question from Mar Torres. Mar, thank you so much for your question. She said, from an individualistic point of view, if you realize that you are not doing well mentally, they tell you that you are out of character. Who is the first person you should speak to?
Fine. So thank you very much, Mar. So when I mentioned, and maybe this wasn't clear, and I would not expect anyone to say someone else, you're doing this out of character, right? Because that's going to bring resistance, because it's just, you're going to be challenging that, where the approach is more, I've noticed you are doing this and this, or I've noticed you've changed, or I noticed you're speaking negatively about work, right? So you would say that rather than saying out of character. That's or if I was told, someone would tell me you're out of character, I'll be also taking it. Depends who tells you. Depends the day of you're in the mood. You will take it differently. So if someone has identified that you are changing your patterns, you're changing the way you do, the first thing who you need to talk is about, if you are thinking about it, if you think, actually, yeah, this is true. I have changed. I have these issues. I have these problems. I have these emotional difficulties. You want to be thinking either going to a GP. You want to be thinking whether there is a EAP in your workplace, whether you have a private health insurance. But regardless, you will have to go through your GP if you wanted a referral for some therapy. Ultimately, nothing stops you from talking to a loved one. Nothing stops you to talking to a relationship. Nothing stops you to talk to someone you trust and then make that decision. Now, if you are out of character and you need some support, there may be some support in your workplace for that, right? You can also do some things for yourself. So if you think, you say, yeah, I'm receptive that I've changed this and I don't feel this well, and you can change because it's about managing your diary, it's about things that you can choose that can be done. If it's something that a traumatic event you're witnessing at work, bullying at work, is it grief, is it's other things you might want to be more specific. So it's not a right person to speak. It wouldn't be a right person. I would say that it always will be your GP or a mental health professional, right? What I must say is if you have noticed you're out of character or someone pointed it out in a way that is not so out of character, I'm doing different things, and things doing differently, I wouldn't wait. That's what I say. I wouldn't wait. There is a wait that things sometimes get better. If someone has noticed that you change, you're out of character, then it's because you're there for a long time. So I would do something as soon as you're aware of it. And that would be GP, they can refer you to talking therapists, and they can refer you to private health insurance. Your employer may have EAP, depending, EAP is Employee Assistance Program. However, not EAPs, they don't really meet the needs of the people. And that's a different conversation. Does that answer your question, Mar?
Yeah, for sure. Again,
Yeah,
so
sure.
thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a Q&A.
Yeah, it's just it's a difficult question, I must say, because it would be very much of how you are, thinking a lot of scenarios in my head, a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think we've come to the end of the webinar. Thank you, Jaime, so much. We really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing your knowledge today with us.
Oh, lovely. Let me. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm.
I was going to say I forgot my last slide. I was told to put this slide because I'm not very good at branding or very good at anything that is not mental health. So this is our social media. Sorry, apologies about the last minute. It's just like I said, I know in 20 years of mental health, it hasn't been 20 years of marketing or accountancy or anything. So so that's the social media. That's me and LinkedIn. You can connect there. And then you have these two emails. I'll go through the first one, the Jaime@online-CBT. And then you go to the website, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and so on. Yeah. And this is, you can find all the links here. Okay. Sorry, Mark. Apologies. It's just
no worries. I'm sure
I just forget
a lot of people will reach out to you. So thank you so much, Jaime, for sharing your knowledge with us today. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you found it useful and interesting. Later today, you will receive an email with the recording of the webinar as well as Jaime's presentation, which he has kindly shared with us. From our side, I would also like to remind our members that we are hosting an after-work event this afternoon called Summer Evening at Arriba. I've just realized that, it could be a great opportunity to continue the conversation in a more informal setting, and also, important point, a good excuse to escape the heat wave and enjoy the venue's excellent air condition. So it's up to you. Finally, I would encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter to stay updated on upcoming Spanish Chamber events. Thank you all from me, and thank you very much, and have a great day. Thanks.